Haunted Guest House. A story about Huang's business trip, during which he unknowingly rented a guest house full of strange and terrifying phenomena. What lies behind these mysteries? And what became of Huang's life afterward? Let's find out together. Chapter 1. Sitting alone quietly on the balcony, Huang slowly sipped his coffee. A thung-long cigarette dangled from his lips as he occasionally took a drag, exhaling puffs of white smoke. His eyes gazed into the distance, as if reminiscing about a story long buried in the past. A moment later, his body suddenly shuddered. Even his heartbeat and breathing became rapid and uncontrollable. A cold gust of wind blew from behind, carrying with it the chill of the night mist that brushed against the back of his neck. Huang didn't know when exactly he had developed this fear of the dark and of sudden cold winds. Perhaps it started after the horrifying incident more than 3 years ago. Hey Huang, how's the prep going for that business trip to Lao Cai? Nothing much to prepare, just a few changes of clothes and some personal stuff. That's all. Don't take it too lightly. Traveling to Lao Cai isn't like other cities. The roads are rough, the population sparse, conditions are lacking. Some places don't even have cell signal. Come on, you've never even been there. You talk like you grew up in the mountains or something. Well, maybe you should watch more YouTube. People do all these real-life exploration shows up there. Sure, but that was years ago. These days, even remote areas are developing fast. The person chatting with Huang was Haiyan, his closest friend at work. On days they weren't in a rush, they'd often hang out for food or drinks after work. Hearing Haiyan say all that, Huang couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. All right, thanks for the heads up. I'll prepare thoroughly so the trip goes smoothly. 3 days later, Huang was driving his silver Vios sedan straight toward Baothang town in Lao Cai province. The journey was nearly 300 kilometers, and he stopped a few times along the way to stay alert. The road grew more twisted and winding as he progressed. The air felt fresh and cool, peaceful, far removed from the noisy, hectic place he called home. Hills and ancient trees lined both sides of the road, casting dense shadows. The purpose of this trip was to inspect a packaging plant that produced tin can shells. If it met the required standards, Huang's company would sign a supply contract, a major step in expanding their food production chain. Though the appointment was scheduled for the next day, Huang arrived early to settle accommodations and rest. By the time he reached the town, it was already late afternoon. Instead of checking into a hotel right away, he took time to explore and enjoy the mountain scenery, something rare for someone always buried in work. As dusk fell and fatigue set in, Huang finally drove to the town center in search of a guest house. But one by one, every place he checked was either full or already reserved. The further he searched, the more disappointed he became. Eventually, it hit him. Today was Valentine's Day. No wonder everything was fully booked. Huang had never cared about such holidays. He had no girlfriend, having thrown himself entirely into work. At the office, people even nicknamed him Monk Huang.
It was nearly 9 p.m. Darkness had completely swallowed the surroundings. Up here, nightfall seemed to arrive even quicker. Dew blanketed the leaves and mist blurred the windshield of his car. Time passed, and Wang had already checked nearly every guest house in the district. He figured going to another district would likely end the same. He even considered sleeping in the car overnight. Not ideal, but at least safe. Asking to stay at a stranger's house was out of the question. Who'd let a random man in? And what if things got complicated? As his eyes grew heavy from exhaustion, something suddenly caught his attention. He slammed the brakes hard, tires screeching. There, outside a narrow alley, stood an old, tattered sign, An Bin Guest House. Just looking at the sign, Huang could already guess the place must be in poor condition. But at this point, all he needed was a bed and a clean mattress. Comfort and luxury were the least of his concerns. He rolled down the window to get a better look at the phone number on the sign. Unfortunately, the last 2 digits were torn off. With no other choice, he drove straight into the narrow, dimly lit alley. If the outside had seemed dark, the alley was pitch black and dead silent. It wasn't designed for cars. Huang knew that instantly. If another car were to come from the opposite direction, he'd have to back out completely. Only a motorbike could squeeze through. The alley was lined with ancient, moss-covered walls, their surfaces white with fungus that resembled sheep's wool. Strangely, Huang didn't see a single house along the way. It felt more like a train track leading into the heart of a mountain. The mist grew thicker, narrowing his field of view. Then, all of a sudden, thump, gasp, something slammed into his windshield. Huang's heart skipped a beat. The screeching noise shattered the silence. Looking up, he was horrified to see a pair of glowing green eyes staring straight at him through the glass. Screams! He screamed instinctively, only to realize it was an owl. He banged on the windshield, trying to scare it away, but the owl didn't budge. Its unblinking eyes kept staring directly at him. His hands and feet were now soaked in sweat. There was something off about the bird. Its gaze wasn't mindless like most animals. It was aware, intense, piercing into his very thoughts. Shudders. Huang's skin crawled. He couldn't bring himself to drive any further and instinctively shifted the car into reverse. Just then, a gruff voice startled him from the side window. Gruff voice, "You're looking for a guest house, aren't you?" To be continued.
Chapter 2. The Innkeeper. The sudden appearance of the man startled Huang once again. He turned his head quickly, but the owl was gone, vanished into the night, as if it had never been there. One strange thing after another. No warning, no explanation. Huang couldn't calm himself. The man spoke again, his voice steady and oddly calm. "You're looking for a place to stay, right? I'm the owner of the inn." Huang nodded instinctively. The man motioned for him to roll down the window, then said, "My place is just a short drive from here. Follow me." Without waiting for a reply, the man turned and began walking into the narrow alley ahead. Huang hesitated. A part of him wanted to follow, but another part screamed to turn around and leave. The alley stretched about 100 meters before ending at an old iron gate. Hanging on either side were 2 faded red lanterns. Their dim glow cast eerie shadows that danced across the cracked pavement. "This is it?" Huang asked. "Yes. Just pull your car in. It looks small from the outside, but it's quite spacious inside." Peering through the gate, Huang saw only darkness. A vast, black emptiness lay ahead. "Why is it so dark here?" he asked, uneasy. "Don't you have guests coming in and out?" The man, short and stout with a belly like a round drum, kept his hands buried in his thick jacket pockets as he replied. "The location is hard to find. We're pretty far from the residential area, so we only get the occasional traveler." Huang frowned. That didn't sound like a sustainable business. Reading the doubt on his face, the man explained further. "Back in the day, we used to be fully booked every night. But ever since the clearance project started in this area, business has slowed. My wife and I are getting old. We're just trying to get by." The explanation seemed sincere enough. Huang felt bad about refusing. "How much is it for one night?" he asked. "Pay whatever you feel like," the man said with a shrug. "We don't have a set price." That surprised Huang. He had never encountered a hotel owner this casual before. Worried it might be a scam, he offered a firm number. "I'll give you 500,000. Is that okay?" The man nodded. "Sure, that'll do. Don't worry, I'm not out to overcharge you." Huang wanted to ask a few more questions, but the man's vague demeanor didn't exactly invite conversation. He parked the car and stepped out, casting his eyes around. The building had 3 stories, all visibly old and run down, just as he had expected. Towering acacia trees surrounded the structure, their spindly branches clawing at the sky. To the side of the building stood a massive banyan tree, its dense canopy blanketing half the courtyard in shadow. Whatever this place looked like in daylight, it felt bone-chilling now. Even when the lights inside flickered on, the sense of dread refused to leave him. "Here," the man said, handing over a set of keys. "Room 307. There's hot water, don't worry." Huang took the keys and asked cautiously, "Are the utilities still working in that room?" "Of course. We still clean it regularly. Everything works fine." He began climbing the stairs. A thin layer of dust clung to each step, and cobwebs stretched across the nearby walls. Large, thick webs that looked like they had been there for ages. So much for regular cleaning, Huang thought. He made it to the 3rd floor. The hallway was pitch black. He groped along the wall for a light switch but found nothing. Pulling out his phone, he used its flashlight to guide him. Click, clack. His footsteps echoed in the silence, oddly loud, unnervingly persistent. The echoes bounced back at him. Too many? Too delayed? As if there were other footsteps? As if someone else or something else was walking just behind him? Room 307 was at the very end of the hall. Huang took a deep breath, inserted the key, and turned it. The door creaked open with a slow, high-pitched squeal. A cold wave washed over him. He switched on the lights and blinked in surprise. The room was clean. Very clean. The walls looked freshly painted. Not at all what he had expected from a place like this. Fatigue settled into his bones. He stank of sweat and exhaustion, but he didn't care. He dropped onto the bed like a sack of bricks. The room was sparsely furnished. A wardrobe, a boxy old TV, an air conditioner, and a tiny side table. But it was enough. After half an hour of rest, Huang finally got up and grabbed a fresh set of clothes to shower. The hot water was a blessing. It felt like it was washing the entire day off his skin. But the moment he opened his eyes and looked down, he froze. The water swirling at his feet wasn't clear. It was red. Blood red. He yelped and jumped back, but as quickly as it had come, the vision vanished. The water was clear again. Breathing hard, he glanced up at the corner of the bathroom. A dim red light glowed from a tiny bulb overhead. So that was it. A red-tinted light. That's all it was. Nothing more. Still, the image had seared itself into his mind. He had never seen a guest room with such a setup. Why would anyone use a red light in a bathroom? Even though he now understood what had caused the illusion, his nerves were far from settled. Soaking wet and shaken, Huang grabbed a towel and stumbled out. He dropped onto the wooden chair beside the wardrobe, heart still pounding. The room suddenly felt colder, darker, heavier. Something wasn't right. Chapter 3. It took Huang nearly half an hour to calm his nerves. Though he didn't want to, he had no choice but to return to the bathroom. His body was still covered in soapy foam. But unlike earlier, this time, the moment he stepped in, chills instantly shot down his spine. It felt like something, or someone, was watching him from within the shadows. An invisible eye lurking just beyond the darkness, unblinking. He reached for the faucet, turned the knob, and nearly jumped out of his skin. The water was ice cold, like it had come straight from a glacier. Maybe the water heater had run out? Huang didn't want to wait for it to refill. Gritting his teeth, he braved the freezing stream. Already rattled by fear, the bitter cold only made things worse. His entire body trembled, and even his... well, you could say everything shrank into hiding. After a rushed rinse, Huang grabbed a towel. But as he looked up, something in the mirror made his blood run cold. For the briefest second, barely a blink, his reflection wasn't his. Instead, it was a tangled mass of hair, long and matted, covering a face he couldn't see. He screamed. Then, just like that, it was gone. Only his pale, terrified face stared back at him now. Whether it was real or just his mind playing tricks, he wasn't sticking around to find out. He snatched the towel and bolted out of the bathroom like the devil was on his heels. From the moment he set foot in this place, strange things kept happening, things he couldn't explain, and slowly, unease turned to dread. As he finished getting dressed, his phone rang. It was Hyen, his best friend. "Yo, Hyen, that you?" "Yeah, bro. How's it going up there? Everything good?" There was a pause before Huang replied. "It's all right, I guess. But man, I've seen some weird stuff today." "Weird stuff? What, like a tribal girl hitting on you or something?" Hyen laughed. "No, not that kind of weird. I mean, weird. Okay, now you're freaking me out. Spill it. What's going on?" I think this place is haunted, bro." Hyen stopped laughing. "Haunted? Are you serious right now?" "I swear I'm not joking." All right. Start from the top. What happened?" So Huang told him everything, starting with the owl and ending with the thing in the mirror. By the time he finished, even Hyen on the other end of the call was covered in goosebumps. "Dude, are you sure you're not in some horror movie? This is freaky as hell." "You think I'm making this up? Here, I'll show you. Video call." They switched to Zalo video. Even through the screen, the room gave Hyen an eerie vibe. When Huang pointed the camera toward the bathroom, Hyen visibly flinched. "Damn, that place looks cursed even through the phone. Why didn't you book a proper hotel?" "I told you, everything was full. Bad luck or something. This was the only place left." "Told you to plan better, man. Always book ahead." Yeah, next time." They kept chatting to keep the fear at bay. But by 11 p.m., Hyen was clearly fading. Huang tried to keep him on the line, but eventually Hyen couldn't stay awake any longer. The call ended, and just like that, the silence returned, thick, suffocating. Huang looked out the window. All he saw were tall kio trees swaying eerily under the moonlight. The thought of staying up all night crossed his mind, but he had a meeting tomorrow. He couldn't afford to look like a zombie or act like one. He pulled out his headphones, blasted some pop ballads, and tried to drift off. Lights on, door slightly ajar, just in case he needed to escape. But as he lay there, music in his ears, he noticed something. Drip, drip, drip. Water. At first he thought it was part of the song, but no, the dripping was real, constant, too real. No matter how loud he made the music, the sound pierced through, drilling into his brain. He yanked the headphones off. The sound was clearer now. Heart pounding, Huang slowly crept toward the bathroom door, just a few steps away. And then, whoosh! The sound of water, like someone had just flushed the toilet or turned on the shower. His heart nearly stopped. And then, The front door creaked open. A pale, round face peeked through the gap. Huang screamed and stumbled back. When the door finally opened fully, he realized it was a woman, short, overweight, wearing a bright red coat. "Oh my, I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to scare you," she said. "Who are you? Why are you in my room?" "I'm the landlady. My husband told me someone checked in, so I just came up to check on things." Huang exhaled. His chest still thumped like a war drum. "You nearly gave me a heart attack. You should have knocked." "I thought you were asleep. Didn't want to wake you. But why was your door wide open like that?" He hesitated. No way he could tell her it was because he was scared of ghosts. I guess I forgot to close it properly earlier." "Well, it's better to be careful. We've never had any thefts here, but you never know." She stepped in slightly, and the light caught her coat, making the red blaze unnaturally bright. Something about her still gave Huang the creeps. Then he noticed, just like her husband, both her hands stayed tucked inside her coat the entire time. Even now they didn't come out. Maybe it was nothing. But it was strange. "Anyway, it's getting late. Try to get some rest. And don't forget, lock the door properly.